Mayor Cantrell also said events like Jazz Fest and Essence Fest should be pushed back to next year. Eyewitness News asked her for her take during her news conference this afternoon, and she's the latest voice warning that those events this fall would be a bad idea. Some are even saying that they should wait until next fall. Paul Murphy reports.
This week should have been French Quarter Fest in New Orleans, followed by 2 consecutive weeks of Jazz Fest. Both have now been postponed until this fall. Public health experts are concerned fall may be too soon and possibly too dangerous to allow tens of thousands of people to gather in such close proximity. Speaking on the Eyewitness Morning News, LSU Health Infectious Disease Specialist Dr. Fred Lopez said the coronavirus will still be here.
It may come in a second wave in the fall, and we need to be prepared, hopefully with an effective vaccine and with some treatments that are reliably effective.
Times-Picayune New Orleans advocate entertainment writer Keith Sparrow says it seems unnatural not to have festivals in New Orleans.
After Katrina, coming together at a festival was a good thing. That was a way to fight back against the isolation and the devastation of Katrina. But with this thing, with the coronavirus pandemic, gathering together is the exact opposite. It's the last thing you want to be doing.
New Orleans and Company Senior VP Mark Romick is optimistic, but he's not sure at this point whether major events will return to the city this year.
But certainly these decisions will be made with the guidelines presented on what is right and healthy for our citizens and our visitors.
The festivals are now waiting on that public health prognosis before announcing any additional plans.
They want to happen. It's important for the city that they happen. But, the state of the pandemic will determine, I guess, whether or not they do.
One thing that is clear, postponements and cancellations are already having a devastating impact on the local economy. About half of the city's tax revenue is somehow tied to the New Orleans tourism and hospitality industry. Paul Murphy, Eyewitness News.
All right, Paul, thank you. And again, late word this afternoon, Mayor Cantrell is telling us she does not think events should be held this fall. And when she asked if the Saints season should proceed, the mayor acknowledged that that is something that the NFL is actually struggling with.